Well, I am from Texas, so howdy. It's good to be here with all of you tonight. What an honor to be here to speak for the Pregnancy Resource Center. My husband is at home, Doug, and we have a lot of kids. We have a daughter who will be 10 this week, and we have 4 boys who are 1, 2, 3, and 4. I know. And I'm pregnant with twins. So, yeah. That's one heck of a surprise. So yeah, I tell people my husband and I lost all self-control 4 years ago in our marriage and couldn't stop breeding. I'm actually a natural family planning instructor. I hear that works if you use it. We clearly wouldn't know. I have no clients. No one trusts me with their chart. So, so anyway, so our first 2 boys, one of my boys is with me tonight. Our first 2 boys are 10 and a half months apart. We usually say 11, so that way people think we may have planned it. And then our second 2 boys are 13 months apart. Our last 2 boys are 6 months apart, and even though I do work quickly, I'm not that fast. Our youngest son was gifted to us through open adoption. And so funny story, funny now, one of those stories. So I'm on Facebook. I'm in this Facebook group with about 30 women. We're all very good friends. And one of them is a sign language interpreter up in Maryland, and she interprets for her church. And she had become friends with a woman that she interprets for, and I found out this woman was pregnant. It was her 4th child. She had become pregnant through some very unfortunate circumstances, and had decided that she wanted to place this baby for adoption. And so, anyway, she ended up finding an adoptive family for her little boy, and 2 weeks before her due date, they emailed her and said, we've been thinking about it, and we've decided that since there's a possibility that your child could be deaf, we don't want him. Because, you always know what you're going to get when you have your own biological children. So, a little slow. Okay, so, So anyway, so then another family was called, but they weren't interested. And so my friend posts in this Facebook group, hey, this is a situation. We've been praying for this woman because it's been a difficult situation the whole time. And so, if anybody knows anyone who'd be interested in adopting this baby, let me know. I was speaking for an event in Atlanta, and I saw this pop up on my phone, so I looked at it. And I don't really know why I did it, but I wrote, "We will." And so, I think it was like one of those where you want to appear to be really generous, and a kid, we'll take it. And so, my friend immediately calls me and she goes, "Are you nuts?" And Carter, our youngest at the time, was only 6 months. And I said, "Yeah, we have so many babies right now in our house. Throwing another one into the mix is not a big deal. I haven't slept in 3 years, so it's fine." And she said, "Okay, well, I'm going to call the mom." And I said, "Great." So I hung up the phone, and I thought, yeah, I should probably call my husband. And what I really thought was, can I just shoot him a text? But I decided I would call, and I told him, and he was sort of mad. I don't know if mad is the right word. He was more panicky because, you see, my husband is a stay-at-home dad. So this actually affects him more than me. So anyway, he didn't talk to me for a couple days, and then he finally called me and he said, you know, Abby, he said, I've been thinking about it, and he said, I wrote down a pros and cons list. And he said, every time I think of a reason this is crazy and we absolutely should not do this, he said, I look into our future and this little boy is always there. And he said, I think we should go ahead and move forward. And I said, oh, I'm really glad to hear that because the home study lady's coming tomorrow. So that would have been awkward if he would have said no. So anyway, 2 weeks later, our son was born, and we were trying to decide what we wanted to name him, and we knew we wanted to name him a name that started with the letter J because his mom's name starts with J, and her 3 other children, their names start with J, and so we're Catholic, and coincidentally, that correlates with the time that we couldn't stop having children. So, you know, take it or leave it. So we like to name our kids a saint name and a family name. And so I've only been Catholic 4 years. I don't know a lot of saints, you know. So I went online to, like, saints.com. And I clicked on the letter J. And I was going down the list. And, you know, nothing was really sticking out at me. And I got to the bottom, and I saw St. Jude. And if you don't know anything about St. Jude is the patron saint of impossible or desperate causes. And I thought, you know what? That's the perfect name for this little boy. Because his mom, you know, when she went to her family and friends and even people at her church, they looked at her and told her, this is the one time abortion is okay. And she continued to choose life. And when she went to her local pregnancy center, which is not a fantastic one like this one, they asked her if she was considering abortion, and she said, no, I would never have an abortion. And they said, well, then we can't help you because we only help women who are considering abortion. And she was rejected again. And she continued to move forward and choose life for her son. And in 2 weeks, before she delivers this baby, rejection again. And, you know, I think about her story, and I look at her, and I think, God, that's what courage looks like. And we all possess that kind of courage. You know, I would love to stand up here and tell you that I've, you know, always defended life, but, you know, that's not true. I worked for Planned Parenthood for 8 years. I worked for the clinic in Houston, Texas. We were building, it's now operational, the largest abortion facility in the Western Hemisphere. It is in Houston. It is 78,000 square feet. It is 7 stories tall. The 3rd floor was built in order to abort babies through the 6th month of pregnancy. I got involved with Planned Parenthood not because I was some, you know, rabid pro-choice person. I grew up in an amazing home with amazing parents, Christian family, church every time the doors were open. I remember saying that I was pro-life. I remember in high school saying that I was pro-life when the topic of abortion came up, but abortion wasn't something that we sat around the dinner table and talked about. Being pro-life was something that we said, but it wasn't how we lived. And so when I went to college, I went to Texas A&M University. Not one fan. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for the sympathy. Anyway, that is where I went to school. And I was walking around campus. I met a woman who was with Planned Parenthood. She was trying to recruit patients and volunteers and maybe potentially staff. And she started asking me what I knew about Planned Parenthood. And honestly, I knew nothing. I don't even think I'd even heard the phrase Planned Parenthood before. I'd never walked into a Planned Parenthood. And she started giving me all their talking points, you know, that, I don't know if you know this, but without Planned Parenthood, there would be absolutely nowhere else for women to go for health care who are low income. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know the plight of a low-income, uninsured, underinsured woman. I've been very fortunate to have health care available to me whenever I needed it. And so when she told me this, I believed her. I didn't know it was a lie, like a big one. There are currently in the United States about 700, a little less than 700, Planned Parenthood clinics across this country. There are over 13,000 federally qualified health centers that see low-income men, women, and children for comprehensive and primary health care. That 13,000 does not include rural public health centers, hospital health systems, county health departments. It also doesn't include the tens of thousands of private physicians who take government subsidy programs like Medicaid in their own practices or group practices. So we're talking about tens of thousands of providers compared to fewer than 700 Planned Parenthood clinics, but Planned Parenthood is the only place women can go. I mean, it's a lie, but they've said it so much that people believe it. I mean, if you say something enough, people begin to believe it's truth. But, I mean, I didn't know that, and so I believed her. And then she asked me what I thought about abortion. I told her, well, you know, I was raised pro-life. And she said, that's good. She said, you know, pro-lifers, they're good people. They're just sort of misguided, you guys. And she said, you know, without access to safe and legal abortion, women are going to be forced to go where? The back alleys. That's going to be bad. Women are just going to be falling out, dying all over the street. And you know, these pro-lifers, they want to take away our rights as women to do what we will with our bodies. And then what right are they going to take away next? They're going to tell us we don't have the right to vote. And then what? Then, you know, women can't wear pants anymore. And I thought, well, I like pants. So I signed up immediately. And you know, I tell people it's what I didn't know about Planned Parenthood, that's what led me in their doors. You know, she told me that about these back alley abortions. I didn't know that what took place many years ago in these supposed back alleys is no different than what takes place today inside of supposed safe and legal clinics. I mean, and let's be perfectly honest, abortion can never be safe. Why? Because in order for an abortion to be deemed successful, an individual human being must die. That is the antithesis of safety. But, I mean, I didn't know. And I submit to you tonight, I believe that it is what many women in our society do not know that leads them in the doors of abortion clinics day after day. It's what they don't know about the industry itself. It's what they do not know about their bodies. It's what they do not know about their fertility. It's what they do not know about their unborn child. And friends, it's what they do not know about Jesus Christ. That's what leads them in the doors of these clinics. And you know, people ask me all the time, they say, you know, Abby, how is it that you went from being, you know, this good Christian kid? I was pretty good. I didn't do very many things that my parents found out about that were wrong. You know, how is it you went from being that person to being a person who ran an abortion clinic? How is it you went from being that person to being someone who laid on an abortion clinic table, not once but twice, to take the lives of my own children? Abby, how did that happen? And I guess I don't really have just a striking silver bullet answer for you tonight, except to say that it happened just a little bit at a time. Because that's the way that sin works in our lives. It's just one little lie at a time, one little justification at a time. And those little lies, those little justifications can transform you into a person that you never even knew existed. I learned when I left Planned Parenthood that if you have to justify something you're participating in, you probably shouldn't be doing it. Because God's word is always true and never requires justification. While I know that Satan has to sneak around to do his work and often takes many, many years to reach his goal, I know that when God wants to change your life, it can happen like that. And that's what happened to me in 2009. 2009 had been a good year for me, an interesting year. In 2008, I'd actually worked for Hillary Clinton's campaign. Nightmare. 2009, in the beginning of that year, in April of that year, I was awarded Planned Parenthood's Employee of the Year Award. You can hold your applause. I know you're all very proud of me. And then the summer of that year, we had some weird stuff going on with our funding. I didn't really know what was going on, why we were treating patients the way we were. And then in August of that year, I was instructed to double our abortion quota, the amount of abortions that we had to sell to patients. And people ask me, Abby, how do you sell an abortion to someone? Like, how do you do that? How do you sell it? Oh, it's so easy. Selling an abortion to a woman who is scared and vulnerable and feeling alone, that's easy. And the easiest sell is to Christian women. And I'm glad that it was mentioned tonight that almost 70% of women who have abortions come from our churches. You give me a Christian woman, I can sell her an abortion every single time. Why? Well, because they don't want to get caught. See, good Christian girls have sex, but they don't want to get caught. That was my story. I realize now that I was awarded Planned Parenthood's Employee of the Year Award, not because I was the best at remembering birthdays or I made the best chocolate chip cookies. I won that award because I was their very best salesperson. I was so good I could have sold an abortion to just about any of you in this room. Abortion is absolutely a product that Planned Parenthood is selling, that the industry is selling. And they are so dang good at doing it. About a month later, we had a visiting physician come in from out of town, and he was explaining to me that at his practice, his private practice, he performed abortions a little bit differently. Abortions at Planned Parenthood and the majority of the abortion industry are performed in a blind manner. They have a cannula. It's a suction tube. It's hooked up to the suction machine. The doctor takes that instrument, inserts it into the woman's uterus, blindly pokes around inside the woman's uterus until he thinks he has enough blood and tissue in a glass jar. And that glass jar goes into a room where all of the parts are reassembled and accounted for to ensure that nothing was left in the woman's uterus. That was the only way I knew abortion to be performed, because I had only worked for Planned Parenthood and visited other clinics affiliated with the National Abortion Facility, and they all used the same protocol. So when this doctor was explaining to me that, I don't think this is going to be shocking to any of you, but it's actually safer for the patient if the doctor can see what he's doing while he's performing surgery on them. I thought, well, yeah, that makes sense, because I'm not down for like a blind root canal or, appendectomy or anything. Like, I want the doctor to see what he's doing, and so that made sense to me. So I went to my supervisor and I said, if this is safest for women, then why aren't we doing this? Why isn't this our standard of care? And she said, well, it is safer for women. She said, but using ultrasound guidance during the abortion procedure takes about an extra 3 minutes of time. Our goal inside of Planned Parenthood was to have a woman on the table, off the table, abortion complete in 5 minutes. So adding an extra 3 minutes of time per patient when you're trying to do, 40 to 60 abortions a day with one doctor, I mean, you just don't have that kind of time. Time is money. So I accepted that, and this doctor told me, though, that if the right patient presented and time presented, he would show me what this type of abortion procedure looked like. He said he thought it would be a good learning experience for me. So that time did come. I was asked to come in and assist during the abortion procedure. My job was to hold the ultrasound probe on the woman's abdomen during the abortion so that the doctor would be able to, in his words, visualize his target. The doctor came in, we did the ultrasound, we found that the woman was 13 weeks along in her pregnancy. Now, 13 weeks, are there arms and legs, fingers and toes, heartbeat, brain waves, internal organs? Yeah, everything's there. Outside the womb, the baby's about this big, and we can even tell if it's a boy or a girl most of the time. And so I stood there looking at this screen. Admittedly, I was feeling apprehensive because I knew it looked like a baby. It wasn't, because pro-choice science told me that if a pregnancy was unwanted, then it was tissue. If a pregnancy was wanted, it was a baby. And this was an unwanted pregnancy, so this was just simply tissue, POC, something to be discarded. But I knew no matter what I saw on the screen, I knew one thing was for sure, and that was that this baby, fetus, whatever, was not going to feel anything. Now, how did I know that? Because Planned Parenthood sent me a memo about it. The most frequently asked question I got from patients seeking an abortion was, is this going to hurt my baby? Will my baby feel this? You see, 60% of women that have abortions, they're already mothers. They have children at home. We don't live in a society anymore where women are having abortions because they don't recognize they're pregnant with a baby. I don't think, in my 8 years at Planned Parenthood, I don't think there was ever a time that a woman came in and called her pregnancy anything other than a baby. They knew it was a baby. They're not having abortions they don't think recognize as a baby. They're having abortions because society has told women that it is an empowering decision to have an abortion. That it is a rite of passage, so to speak. That if you are ill-equipped in any way to be a mother, then the most merciful thing you can do for your child is to kill it. And that's really why the culture of death exists. I don't want to get all theological here, but that's really why the culture of death exists. Because of our fear to suffer. Why does physician-assisted suicide exist? Well, because we don't want people who are sick to have to suffer, so we'd rather kill them. Why does abortion exist? Well, because we don't want a baby to have to suffer if they're unwanted with an unfit parent. We don't want a woman to have to suffer through motherhood and raise a child that's unwanted. So we don't want to suffer. We have forgotten that we are to take our sufferings and give them to Christ. We don't want to suffer, so we kill. And I stood there looking at this screen and reminding myself this baby wasn't going to feel anything, and I watched the cannula of that suction tube. The suction wasn't yet turned on. I watched it go into the woman's uterus, and it got closer and closer to the side of this baby, and when it touched his side, he jumped. And he began flailing his arms and legs as if he was trying to move away, as if he was trying to find a safe place. But there was nowhere for him to go. The doctor asked the technician to turn on the ultrasound machine, and he said, "Beam me up, Scotty." And the suction was turned on. I think people make the assumption that what I saw next was the worst part, that seeing a child become dismembered in his mother's womb would be the worst part. And that was bad, but I knew that was going to happen. That wasn't the worst part. The worst part was that when I had the opportunity to intervene, when I had the opportunity to do something, I did nothing. I just stood there and I watched. The screen was black. A few seconds later, I knew that meant that the abortion had been successful. I went back to my office and I didn't know what to think. I knew I had been lied to. I wasn't a victim. I had eagerly believed their lies. But I knew that I had to leave, and that was scary because that had been my life. But for 8 years, there have been people outside of my abortion facility praying for the women going in and praying for us too, the workers as well. And I remember that day, I was sitting in my office and I began to really pray for the first time in 8 years. And I was asking God, God, where do I go? Who do I talk to right now about what I've just witnessed? And there were these two women standing outside with the pro-life group in town, and I felt like God was telling me to go to them, to go to that pro-life group of people. And I thought, no, give me somebody else. Like anybody else. And that's where I felt like I needed to go, so I ran out the back door. I got in my car. I could have walked to their office because it was conveniently located next door. But I thought that would look suspicious, so I got in my car and drove the 50 yards. And, I pulled in their parking lot, and I walked in their back door, and I sat on their couch, and I didn't know what to say. What do you say? Sorry? That didn't seem like enough. I knew I had been responsible for over 20,000 abortions during my time with Planned Parenthood. Sorry? But I sat there, I looked at these people, and they were looking back at me, and they just said, it's over. It's done. God has given you a new heart. You are a new creation in Christ. And that's who we see sitting in front of us today. And I knew in that moment, I recognized in that moment, that there was nothing I could ever do to make up for what I had done. But because of Jesus Christ, I didn't have to. I decided I would go ahead and resign that day. Not to worry, I gave him a good 5 minutes notice. And I went back to the clinic. I told the pro-life group that I was going to be resigning that day, and so they sent a young man over. His name was Bobby. They sent him over to the sidewalk just to make sure I was able to leave without incident, And so I was packing up my stuff, and I took my last load out to the car, and he was standing out there, and so I waved at him and said, I'll be at your office tomorrow, and he said, okay. And so I got in my car, and I pulled out of the driveway for the last time, and I took a left. And Bobby, he didn't know I was watching him or I could see him or anything, but I remember watching him. He put his arms in the air and he fell to his knees. Because you know what? There had to be times where they looked at me and they said, she's never leaving. It's never going to happen. Guys, I was not the friendly abortion clinic director. I mocked them. I mocked their faith. I was mean to them. And they had to have doubt. There had to be times where they said, it's never going to happen. And then one day it did. You see, I'm standing in front of you today as a testament to the power of conversion. You see, no one is beyond the power of conversion. Because, friends, no one is beyond the power of Christ. And that's really what this whole thing is about. It's not just about saving a baby. That's not enough. This is about conversion of heart. And that's really what the whole pro-life movement should be about all the time. It's about conversion. It's about conversion of heart for the women who come in who are scared and alone and looking for a way out. Guys, they're looking for a solution. And abortion has been presented to them by our society as the greatest solution to their problem. And so they buy it over and over again. So it's about conversion of their heart. It is about conversion of heart for the fathers who are involved. You know, I believe one of the primary antidotes to abortion is fatherhood. But we have to teach these men how to be fathers. We have to teach these men, we have to show them in God's word who it is that God has intended them to be. And if we do that, they will fight for the life of their baby. And they will fight for the life and the health of the woman in their life. Every time. There was a study done of women who had had abortions, and they asked them, they said, who was the most influential voice in your decision to have an abortion? 74% of those women, friends, said the man involved. Fatherhood. What a concept. It's about conversion of heart for our friends, our family, people around us that maybe don't believe like we do. It's about conversion of heart for our politicians who don't believe like we do. It is easy for us to be mad and angry at people that don't believe like we do, but I would bet, me included, that we don't spend enough time on our knees in prayer for them, their salvation, and their conversion. I would bet that. Conversion. That's what this is about. Convert the heart, save the child. You know, I want you guys to do several things tonight. First, I want you to buy that DVD series. And I'm not trying to hawk their product or anything. It is a solid product. It is the only product out there that I know of that's actually equipping parents on how to talk to their children about these issues. Because let me tell you something. It's weird to talk about sex with our kids. Like, it feels weird, to do it. Let me tell you something. If you're not doing it, someone else will. And I can promise you 99.9% of the time, the message that they're hearing from someone else is not the message you want them to hear. I talk to kids in public and private schools, Christian schools, for the 8 years that I worked at Planned Parenthood. You know what I told them every time they told me, well, should I talk to my parents? I said, no, because your parents won't understand. And you have an advocate in me. You have an advocate in Planned Parenthood. So when you start having questions about sexuality, you come to me. Why? Well, because we don't want them to trust their parents. We want to separate children from their parents. That's the most effective way to sell a kid an abortion. Why does Planned Parenthood provide contraceptives to the masses? Because they want to reduce the abortion rate? No. They wanted to reduce the abortion rate, they wouldn't have an abortion quota to begin with. They provide contraception to your kids beginning at age 9 and 10 because they know that if they give your kid a contraceptive method that eventually is going to fail, 54% of women seeking an abortion were using contraception at the time they got pregnant. Friends, we don't need birth control, we need self-control. So you look out into a waiting room at an abortion clinic and more than half of them are contracepting, pregnant, and therefore an abortion. I'm 36 years old. I can't remember to take a pill at the same time every day within 2 hours. You think a 13-year-old can? Of course not. So you give them that contraception that eventually is definitely going to fail them. And when they do, when it does, and they become pregnant, not a problem, because I've been in their school system since they were in kindergarten. And because Planned Parenthood was where, or the abortion industry was where they probably got that contraception, and that was their first point of contact, that's who they're going to go back to. Marketing 101 tells us that they will go back to that first place of contact. That's the first point of sale. And then I can sell them an abortion, and you'll never know about it. Why does Planned Parenthood provide STD testing? Because they care about the gonorrhea and chlamydia rates in the Grand Rapids area? No, they don't care. They provide STD testing and treatment to people in this area because they know that people who need STD testing are probably participating in more high-risk sexual behavior. And if they're participating in more high-risk sexual behavior, statistics tell us they're probably going to have an unplanned pregnancy. And when they have that unplanned pregnancy, Marketing 101 tells us that if they went there to Planned Parenthood originally, they'll go back there when they have that unplanned pregnancy. And that's another opportunity for them to be sold an abortion. Guys, this is not a conspiracy theory. This is a brilliant marketing plan. This is a brilliant business plan. And that's why what's happening at this center and centers all across this country are so important. That's why we have to continue to support them. Because Planned Parenthood and the abortion industry are just lurking above your children, above your grandchildren. They're just sitting there waiting to get a hold of them. So I want every single person here to buy that series. I don't care if you're a priest. I don't care who you are, because every single person in here, I mean, they don't need it, but I'm just saying. I don't care who you are. Every single person in here knows a parent. And every single parent that you know needs to be watching this DVD series. So that's one thing I want you to do. The next thing I want you to do is, because this is a fundraiser, that's not a surprise to anybody, right? If it is, surprise. But somebody's going to come back here in a minute, maybe Jim, and they're going to ask you to give to this ministry. And I'm telling you, I don't want you to give generously tonight. I actually want you to give sacrificially. I want you to give as if lives are depending on it, because they are. I don't think we really know what sacrifice means anymore. Sacrifice means going without so that something or someone else can have. And I'm looking around at you, and you guys are all very pretty people, and you have very nice clothes on tonight, and I've been admiring some of your shoes, and looking at all of you, I can probably make the assumption that we can all go without something to give. So I'm asking you to sacrifice. I'm also asking you to be encouraged. You know, I mean, I'm not going to get political here or anything, but looking at the way the layout in our country is going to be starting January 20th, there's absolutely no reason that we can't defund our country's largest abortion provider. And let me tell you something. When our money is taken away, when our more than $500 million of tax money is taken away, their doors will close because they can't survive without us. I believe that I am living in a time where we will see abortion not just illegal, because that's not my goal. My goal is to make abortion unthinkable. And I do believe that that we are living in a time where that is a reality, where it can happen. It's going to happen because of sinners like this one and others across the country who are focused on conversion. You guys really don't have a lot of abortion clinics in your state. I don't know why Michigan can't be the first state to be abortion-free, really. I'm looking at some of you clap like this. You're like, yeah, right. Let me tell you something. If you don't believe that can happen here in your state, if you don't believe that abortion can become illegal and unthinkable in our country, then you don't serve the same God that I do. Because the God that I serve, he is in the business of miracles. That is what he revels in. That is what he is best at. And God wants nothing more than for every single one of us to pull up our bootstraps, roll up our sleeves, and get busy working, making abortion unthinkable. But that's going to take all of us doing something. You know what? There's an abortion clinic here. And it is a shame that there are not hundreds of people standing outside of that abortion clinic every single day that it's open. You know what we're saying as a population? You know what we're saying as a community when that abortion clinic continues to be open day after day without any presence on that sidewalk, without a massive pregnancy brain, without a massive presence outside on that sidewalk? They might as well have a sign up on their center that says, this clinic is open by the permission of the Christian church. Because if there was a clinic anywhere in this town that was humanely euthanizing 4-year-old kids, it wouldn't be open for a week. But almost every day, there is a clinic here in your community that is not humanely euthanizing anyone. They are ripping babies apart. If that doesn't motivate you to get involved in this movement, I don't know where your head is. Now is the time. And I'm asking you to do better than I did. I'm asking you to do something. The problem has been presented to you tonight, and the answers have been given to you. Don't just sit here and do nothing. Do something. I do want you to leave here being encouraged. People come up to me all the time and they say, I don't know, Abby, I don't know if we're going to win. They have Bill Gates and Bill Clinton and stacks of bills. But you know what? At the end of the day, it really doesn't matter who they have on their side. Because let me tell you something, friends. I'm not standing up here speaking from a place where I hope we have victory. No. I'm standing up here speaking to you from a place of victory. Because it doesn't matter how much money they have on their side. It doesn't matter who they have supporting them, because we have the number one person on our side, and that's Jesus Christ, and we will win this battle. Thank you all so much, and God bless you.